Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pagico Workshop number 3. My name is Trey Meng. I am the Chief Software Developer of Pagico, and it's a great pleasure to talk to you today. And once again, this is actually our 3rd workshop, and so welcome if you have seen our previous workshops before, and if you're new, of course, welcome. And today I'm really excited to tell you all about the most recent development in Pagico and also some of the strategies you can apply to your daily project management process. So let's get down to it, actually. Let me make sure that you can see the screen. Okay, so as you can see right now, I already have one project up, and this is actually the project I used to plan the webinar number 3, or the workshop number 3. And here is actually our structure for the day. We will get started with a brief introduction of Pagico, just in case if you're new, and if you are already a user and have been using Pagico for some time, we're going to talk about the recent new capabilities that we recently introduced into Pagico, just to bring you up to speed. And then we'll dive right into strategies for project management, right? So all of us are really busy, and we usually deal with a lot of projects all the time. And so we'll talk about tips and techniques to manage all of these projects efficiently. Then we'll talk about organizing data object level things, right, across projects. One of the common things we have every day is that we have things scattered across multiple tracks of things, right? So keeping track of all of these things efficiently also matters quite a lot. Following that, we'll go into the new feature here, the web widgets, which is actually a new capability, and we're really excited about it. And then we'll talk about, of course, the highlight here of the day, which is the automated workflow, which we believe will revolutionize. Well, will definitely speed up your workflow, that's for sure. And then finally, we'll talk about power-ups, right? So these are productivity tips that can help you do things faster, do things more easily, reduce your stress even further, and try to let Pagico do some autopilot kind of stuff for you, right? And then finally, we'll talk about a Q&A where you get to ask your questions and we'll get your questions answered. And so hopefully, we can cover everyone's need and moving forward. So before we get started, please do type in the chat and let us know your questions, and so we can address that down the line, okay? And so, yeah, let's get started. Once again, welcome. So the first thing I want to talk about is a brief Pagico introduction, right? So I want to talk just briefly about what Pagico is and what you can use to do. So Pagico is a work management platform. It manages not only your tasks, but also checklists, notes, files, tickets, receipts, itineraries, booklets, and all the way to projects and contacts. So it is kind of unique because a lot of products out there, they usually are excellent at managing just tasks, and some of them are excellent at managing notes, and they're great at note taking, and some of them really are dedicated to professional project managers. And Pagico was designed for everyone else, right? So it is designed to be as easy as possible, and so you can just throw in everything you got, and then it can organize things and make sense out of things and reduce your stress while accomplishing more. So one of the things I want to show you is actually the ability to manage projects, right? So for instance, right now I'm looking at a project about this workshop, right? So this is actually just a checklist with all the things over here. I can check things as I go. For instance, right now we're talking about Pagico intro. And in this kind of project, you can hold all kinds of stuff, right? So not only tasks, lists, but also, in this case, bookmarks to web pages, more lists, notes over here, and linked projects, and so on and so forth. So you can just dump everything into your project and keep them organized. So this is one container, right? So a project in Pagico is really just a container, and you can just throw a lot of stuff in there. And here, for instance, is another project, right? Another bunch of lists, another bunch of notes, and different capabilities, right? So once you have all the things in Pagico in your individual containers, one of the really common problems or challenges that we face every day is that we have things scattered across multiple containers. And so Pagico is designed to have a dashboard that shows you everything from a bird's eye view. Right? For instance, right now I'm looking at my interactive timeline, and I can just take a look at my entire workload, and I get to know, which part of things are behind, which are things I'm actually ahead, and plan accordingly. In this case, as you can see right now, this is Pagico Webinar 3, and I have one thing I did not check off, which is the testing of the live stream setup. So if you can see me and hear me okay, I guess I've done that part. And so I'm going to check that off right here. And if there are things that you're going to move around, you can actually move things, right? You can reschedule as needed. So this is the project management aspect of Pagico, right? So it's really working as a data dump, right? You just throw in everything. The inbox is a random catch-all sort of a container. So if you're into the GTD methodology, right, everything goes to your inbox first, and then you get to move them into individual projects. You can do that as well. In addition to the inbox and project, we also have, of course, contacts, right? So in this case, we have, you can just store all of your contacts and clients and students or mentors, colleagues, or partners, right? You can list all of them here, and they're all just individual data containers. So you can easily keep track of clients and put in data into their corresponding containers. You can sort them by different groups, you can sort them by positions, and you can customize all kinds of ways to look at your data. So that's kind of the uniqueness of Pagico in terms of the combination of project and contact management. There's also a little Kanban board right here when it comes to managing your projects. For instance, if you have phase-based categories, you can actually move things along a phase. For instance, right now, this is Pagico development, and I have 3 projects over here. And when they're done, I can actually just move one of the projects over by dragging it into a different board, right? So in a way, it's really similar to a Kanban board. But this is on a project level, right? So if you're let's say a music producer where you have projects along the track and you have multiple things, right? And different project will be at a different stage of their life cycle, you can actually create categories that match those life cycle stages and move your projects across from one stage to the next and to the next, right? So more on that will definitely be covered later. So once again, this is just a really high level overview of Pagico in terms of and projects and contact management. When you have a lot of data, and if you feel like you're overwhelmed by all the data, or if you feel like you need to find something really quickly, I encourage you to start with the all data section right here. So the all data view was fairly recently introduced. I think it was late last year, where you can narrow down your things by looking at the category and in combination with the use of tags, right? So as you can see, if you can select one category already, and this is everything matching the category, right? There's a lot, right? And then you can choose, okay, what about matching that category with a tag? And you can continuously select additional tags to further fine tune your selection. Right? And so all data is a great way for you to dive down and just navigate in your ocean of data when the project browser and the contact browser are not enough for you. So that's just a general overview of Pagico. And if you're new to Pagico, I also encourage you to check out the Create New button right here. So by default, Pagico is optimized for task management. And so obviously the primary action for most people will be creating a new task. That is clicking on this button right there. And you have this new task panel where you can just type everything in, and the default destination is inbox. But if you're new to Pagico, definitely check out this down arrow button right here, because Pagico is much more than just a task management platform. So if you click on that one, you get to choose to select whatever type of data you want to create. For instance, the task is the default action. You can also create a new note. You can create new projects, new contacts, new collections, and new teams, new workflows, and so on and so forth. So more on that later. And one more thing I want to share with you is that if you're like me, who you prefer a minimalist appearance of your user interface, you can choose to minimize the sidebar right here. And when you minimize your sidebar, you get a bigger view of your content, which looks really good, and you don't lose any functionalities. For instance, if you want to create a new project, okay, with the sidebar minimized, here's a little tip, right? So you can just right click on the blue button right here, and you can still have the same add new menu. So just keep that in mind. All right, so that was the brief introduction of Pagico at 10,000 feet level. And now let's talk about recent capabilities, right? So one of the things I want to talk about is actually content tabs. So if you go open this one project up, right? So this is actually the 2024 May update. And if you're recently updated your Pagico, then you are most likely to be running the May edition already, Okay, so this is actually the project that I used to manage the entire design, development, testing, and the release cycle of the update. So here's a project, and one of the things I want to talk to you about is actually the content tabs. As you can see in this project, which is actually quite large in scale and scope, right? It has multiple dimensions and different stages. And so right here, I have a development tab where all the development related tasks, design related things go into this tab, right? And then I also have a marketing tab. In this case, this is all the public facing actions, posting blog posts, writing newsletters, and sending things out, those kind of actions. And as always, I also have a post-release tab where after the initial official release of this update, things will happen and we'll discover additional glitches or feature requests. We'll add things over here. So this is the content tab feature that was introduced approximately 3 to 4 months ago. This is a great way for you to manage medium-sized project where it does have multiple perspectives, but it's not big enough to use multiple projects in conjunction, right? So you have one giant project with individual subtabs. To create those subtabs, it's really simple, right? Just go ahead and click on the gear icon right here, and you get to see, first of all, a preview of all the tabs you currently have. You can actually disable tabs that you don't need, right, to further customize your experience. You also get a preview of all the tabs. For instance, if you look at the development, we can see, oh, there are 4 things that are top 4, and these are all checked. And in the marketing, everything's checked. In the post-release, there's one thing under the feature request list, right, that is not checked. You can enable, disable them as you wish, and you can also try to include them in public share if you're sharing this with everyone else. To create a new tab, just click over here, and to rename existing tabs, it's as easy as clicking on the pencil button, right? So I highly encourage you to check out the content tabs if you're managing relatively complex projects. Okay, so that's the first thing. That's with the content tabs. And next one I want to talk to you about was actually really just the enhanced preview of projects. Right? So a while ago, if you remember, if you have used the linked container feature in the past, you know that if you link one container to the next, then you will see a little card representing the target project, right? So I have the same thing here. This is my Webinar 3 project, and if I go all the way down to over here, this actually is a linked project. As you can see, I'm linking the May update project with this webinar project, and this card now, will now offer you a much better preview of what's inside the target tab or the target container, right? So in a lot of cases, you don't even need to go to the project to see what's inside. You get to see an enhanced version of the preview. And another thing I want you to know about is actually a thing called metadata panel. Okay, so you can click on the sandwich icon right here and choose edit metadata in any project. And this is the metadata panel of a project. A metadata panel allows you to, first of all, set the category of a project. You can set the cover image of a project to make it look really nice. You can set tags, and you can custom properties. You can define what attributes gets added to your project. In this case, as you can see in my webinar, I have one attribute added, which is known as type. And the value of that property is user education. The fun part about this is that you can decide whatever property you need, and that fits your workflow, right? And so let's see. Let's put in a new property over here. Let's say, well, this is a webinar that took place in May of 2024, right? So I would say, okay, so year 2024. And down the line, if I continue to do this for all my future webinar projects, and by adding the year property, I can start browsing all my webinars by year, right? And for instance, right now, this is the only thing that carries the year property, but let's assume that we have more projects like that, right? I can go ahead and turn on the auto group feature. And by doing that, we would, if you expand the sidebar, you would have the year subgroup automatically showing up. And if you go there, you would see this thing listed under that group. So imagine if you have more and more things that are similar in nature, but takes place across a long sort of timeline, this could be a very fantastic feature. Take a moment to read the chat over here. Studio, recording management, yeah, perfect. Actually, I'm a musician as well. I play piano by training, but let's carry on. User for music production. All right, cool. So I'll definitely get to those questions. Thank you for having the questions and keep them coming. So we were talking about metadata, right? So especially if you're a studio, manager or a musician, right? You produce a lot of albums, tracks. Some of them are albums, some of them are tracks, some of them are individual independent releases, right? You can definitely take advantage of the metadata panel here. And so you can say, oh, I want to browse all of my previous albums, right? By album title, or I can browse everything by year, or I can browse everything by artist names or by instrument, so on and so forth. The metadata panel is completely open to you, and you can define as many items as you need. All right, so that's metadata panel. We'll come back to it if we need it. And then next up, I want to talk to you about is the brand new map view. Well, if you have good memory, then you probably remember that we introduced the map view a while ago already. And so you can say this is actually nothing new. But this, the difference here is that, well, Google Maps is having some trouble today, but we'll see. Maybe we'll come back. Well, let's see if a reload works well. Yeah, a reload works. Okay, so the map view, right? So the difference here is that the map view now allows you to actually move around. Well, it could be my internet, and allows you to zoom in and zoom out. Yeah, it's definitely my internet. And then once you move things around to your liking, you can actually update the map view so that Pagico remembers where you want to look at and what kind of zoom level you want to look at, and instead of resetting to the target address every time. So that's what's new with the new map view. In addition to the map view, we also introduced a brand new enhanced version of WebLink. In this case, it's a web widget. As you can tell, right now I'm planning a trip to Japan, and it's very handy to have the map of where you're going and also have the weather showing up next to it as well. So this is a fully customized web widget. You're not limited to just showing the weather information. You can do a lot of amazing things with it, but weather is just one of the good examples. So you can set your target and then show a 7-day forecast, a 1-day forecast, or a months-long forecast, things like that. So more on that later. That's the new web widget feature. And lastly, I want to just briefly touch on the automated workflow feature. The workflow can be located in a number of ways, right? So first of all, you can click on the down arrow right there and go check the manage workflow feature. The workflow editor is actually located inside your preferences panel right here. As you can see, I currently have a few workflows, and you can create as many custom workflows as you need. And sometimes it's just creating routine things. Sometimes it's registering new clients. For instance, I do have a new client registration tab right there. And this option would allow me to label a client as a client and then automatically create follow-up tasks, registration date, and even send it a welcome email to the recipient, which is really handy, right? So if you do a lot of repetitive things, consider creating custom workflows, right? So more on that in a moment, because we're definitely going to talk a lot more about this. All right, so this is a quick wrap-up of recently introduced new capabilities to Pagico, and now let's talk about strategies for managing your projects. So projects is a big deal in Pagico, right? So it is the most commonly used container for data objects. You're looking at one project right now, okay? So one of the first things I want to let you know is that when it comes to managing project, it's usually a lot about classifying your projects so that you can find them later, okay? So in addition to putting things in here, I want to introduce you once again to the metadata panel. So one of the most commonly used feature here is definitely the tags feature, right? So in the metadata panel, you see a tags property. Click on that, and you will be able to select, some of the existing tags that you have previously used, or you can tap new tags right here. So for instance, this is a monthly update. I would just say, oh, I'm going to create a new tag called monthly update, okay? Apparently I have not used this tag before, but that's okay. I'm just going to keep it as is and hit enter. There you go, we have a new tag. Because tags cannot have spaces, Pagico automatically replaces this space with a hyphen, which is totally fine. So now we have a tag. What's the advantage of using tags? Well, the advantage is that you can use more than one label to describe your project, right? So for instance, this is a Pagico project, obviously. This is a monthly update. What else? Oh, let's say we have done this one. So this is a completed project as well. So I'm going to use 3 keywords to describe this project. Once I have that, let me just do the same thing for another project, right? So this is the 2024 April release, right? Just a few months ago. And if I click on the tags, I would do monthly update. I've used that already. And then of course it's a Pagico project and it's also completed, okay? So I'm gonna assign the same 3 tags to it. Now, if I go back and expand my sidebar and go to all data, let's say at some point I want to review all the monthly updates that I've done, right? So I would be, I'm looking for a Pagico container. So I would select Pagico from the tags browser. And Pagico will automatically filter all the remaining tags that match my existing selection. And I remember, I'm looking for monthly update. So I would choose monthly update, and then these things would automatically show up. So keywords or tags allow you to fine-tune and finely grain your classification system so you can navigate any way you like. For instance, if I want to just browse all the Pagico, but also completed projects, then I'll be able to find all the completed Pagico projects in the past. And of course, you can also choose the uncheck the completed. I want to see all the current ones. Where's the current go? Okay, here we go. So you can choose the current projects. And so, yeah, once again, tags allows you to just mix and match and select the things you want to do and describe your project and find them really efficiently. So that's using tags. Another advantage for using tags is that it not only matches container level objects, but also it matches data level objects, right? For instance, if I have, let's say that's a feature, right? So add render as widget option to edit panel. Okay, so let's say I want to add the same tags to this task itself. All I need to do is to enter the edit mode and say, it's a Pagico thing, right? And by using the @ symbol, you can write tags in line. And I want to say this is completed, right? So now, as you can tell, my task right here has both the keywords here. If I go back to all data and do the same thing where I search for, all the Pagico, and let's wait for completed. And there you go. So you get to match not only projects, but also lists or files and notes, okay? So this is a really flexible way for you to describe everything that happened in your work, and then you're able to find them later and really efficiently, okay? Is there a community template repository? Yes, we'll definitely talk about it. Thank you. Yeah, so moving on. So in addition to tags, let's talk about metadata, okay? We have already talked briefly about it, where we added a monthly update item right here, and it shows up. Let's do the same thing for the April update as well. I've done that already, apparently. So if I go into the type, I can browse everything by category, right? So as long as you have the same property in the metadata, you get to browse them by groups. So that is a really powerful feature, right? Especially for those musicians out there. If you have different recordings, different compositions, they're really similar in nature. Definitely use metadata to describe those projects, and so you can browse them by groups. Let's see. Yeah, so if you're a product manager, if you're releasing product periodically, definitely use that feature as well, right? So right now I'm using the type property, and I can filter everything by type. And as you can see, I have made a lot of trips over the past few years, and some of them are labeled differently. And so these are the categories, which is something we'll talk about right away. In addition to tags, metadata, auto grouping, we can also use categories to define or classify your project. Right, so if I go into any one of my projects, and I can choose the category right here in the drop-down menu. So this category here is a really common way to categorize your project, right? And all the categories can be color-coded and can be custom named. And some of them belong to myself only, some of them belong to the entire company, and you can have different scopes, right? So in this case, this particular project is categorized as Pagico development. And one of the things that you should know about categories is that it is mutually exclusive. That means every project can only belong to one category at a time. It could be a limitation. It could also be a feature of itself. For instance, if you are a musician and have different projects along with, at different stages of their life cycle, right? You can actually move things from one stage to the next by selecting brainstorm stage, and then composition stage, recording stage, and mastering stage, and all the way to the release, right? So you can actually define those custom stages as categories and define different colors, and so that they jump out at you automatically, right? So you can do that. So these are categories. Categories can be assigned to projects, obviously, contacts as well, and also all the data objects. Right. For instance, if you look at this project right here, I have a bunch of lists, and every list has the same category, which is known as the Pagico Development Project category. You can also define categories to individual list items. For instance, if I want to define a different category for that one list item just by itself, you can do that as well by choosing a different category. So just so you know, this feature is very flexible, and so you can definitely mix and match and have different things embedded in different categorized objects, okay? And one of the things I want to clarify here is that if you assign category to the entire list, for instance, you're not going to see the color label, right? For instance, right now you see the Pagico completed. That's because we set a different category for that one list item, and that's why it carries that little label. But if it doesn't carry it, it just carries the overall color. And so if you do search for, let's say, Pagico completed or in progress, tasks, these things would show up as well, even though you don't see the labels. So these are categories, and one more thing about category that I mentioned briefly before was the use of Kanban board, right? So now let's say my 2024 April update obviously has completed already. So I'm going to just say, okay, this guy's done. I'm going to move that to the completed category. You can recategorize projects as easy as just moving things around, okay? Where else can you use the Kanban board? Well, you can also do that in collections, right? So, well, in this particular collection, everything belongs to the same category, so you don't see a lot of excitement right there. But yes, you do have this Kanban style project browser in collections, in teams, and of course in the project browser. Now that we talk about collections, let's jump in and talk about that as well. In a lot of cases, we have complex projects, right? So projects that contain so much information. For instance, if you're a faculty at a university, then you obviously teach, multiple semesters, right? And sometimes you teach similar courses, but slightly different across semesters. And if you keep adding the same thing to the same project, it just gets increasingly large and unusable over time, right? So another case would be if you're doing a research project and it involves a lot of smaller pieces, and you want to have a way to somehow group these individual pieces and maybe people together into one larger sort of container. And that is when you would need something known as the collections, okay? So let me give you a demo right here. Let's say I have monthly updates, and I really want to have an overview of all the monthly updates in the recent past and also in the future, right? So they all live in individual projects, right? So going from one project to the next and to the next is really cumbersome. So when that happens, I would create a new collection. In this case, I would just give it a name called monthly updates. Okay, so ideally this collection would be like a folder to all the projects. So now I have this empty collection. I can go ahead and select things, and by adding them manually by hand to the collection here. So for instance, I would select the April and May. For the interest of time, I'm just going to involve these two things to my collection here. And so once adding these two projects, I would be able to see a list of all of them. And of course you can add people, right? So let's say add people to your collection, you can do that as well. And so if you manage a research team, you would definitely be able to have all the small projects and the team members or important personnel into the same collection. And in the collection, you also get the same kind of Kanban style management board, right? So you can move things along the timeline or a life cycle stage. In addition to these two things, you'll also be able to, of course, filter things by title. So you can filter really quickly, but also you have a universal timeline and calendar. as I mentioned before at the beginning of our webinar, one of the main strengths of Pagico is to be able to aggregate all of your information and show it to you on the same dashboard. So now you have your project-wide dashboard. If you go into the project timeline and calendar, you will be able to see all the time-sensitive things on a timeline across all the embedded projects. So this is a fantastic way for you to see, just these relevant projects along a timeline. So you get to, be able to stay on top of everything and rearrange things as needed. As you can see right now, I'm having 2 things that are behind schedule. And so if I do discover that's the problem, I would simply just move that to probably tomorrow. Yeah, so that's a static collection. A static collection, it's just like a folder. You put things into it and it will stay that way, right? So this is fantastic for you to create statically, organizationally static projects, right? But sometimes you have things that grow over time. For instance, if I analyze our situation, I realize that, all of my future monthly updates will carry this tag. So it would save me so much time by not having to manually add things to my static collection, right? So in that case, I will be creating a new collection, and this is automatic monthly update. I'm naming automatic. It doesn't make much sense, but it kind of makes sense because we're talking about the automatic nature of the collection here. And I would choose smart collection. And for the keyword, I would say monthly update, okay? So that is my keyword. Hit confirm, and when Pagico creates the automatically monthly update smart collection, it will scan your entire database and finding everything that matches your criteria, adding it to your collection. So in a way, this feels like a smart playlist kind of thing, where you define a criteria and it automatically refreshes the content to show you everything that matches your criteria. One of the interesting things to talk about here is that smart collections includes not only containers, but also data objects, right? So let's try one more thing. This is gonna end really badly, but let's see. As you know, I work on Pagico quite a lot, and so I do have a lot of things labeled with Pagico. So by using this keyword, I am in for a big trouble because a lot of Pagico related things will show up. But hopefully that's a good example to show you how you can include data level object as well. It could be interesting because let's say if you do a lot of different projects and some of the projects involve, let's say, a common action like sending email out or call to follow up, or things like that, right? And if these actions include a keyword like at call, right, or at email, then you can match them and then solicit everything matching your criteria from across your database. So here's how it looks. So I do save the settings, and I should have a bunch of things showing up right here. So switching over, yep. The content is limited to 50, right? Because in order to make sure that things don't go too crazy. You get things organized by their parent. You can sort them by time, and you also get to see a list of all the containers that match your criteria. So if you want to match everything that are both containers and data objects, definitely try to use smart collection. Now you might be wondering, can I have a smart collection that only matches container? And the answer is definitely yes. And you just need to use a little more advanced search query, which we have some documentation on our help site. So I don't want to go too much in depth here, but we'll definitely post a link in the description so that if you're interested in reading more about the search query syntax, you definitely can look it up. So what we need is to define the type. We don't want autocorrect, but I think it's fine. So I would just say projects. And then I would say tags monthly update, right? So by supplying this kind of advanced search query, you get to define what kind of type of data you're looking for, what kind of keywords are you looking for in what field. So hit save the settings, and coming back over here, let's see. Maybe type is project and tag is that. Let's see if that works. There you go. So you will be able to define the types of things. And for instance, you can choose to search for, okay, so type is list item, is completed is no, and tags carries Pagico, right? So by using this kind of combination of criteria, we're trying to filter and match everything that's not completed, but it carries the Pagico tag. Let's see if we have anything. Saving the settings, And oh, by the way, limit results to X number can be defined right here. And going to the content, we do have quite a bit of things that have not been marked as completed carrying that tag. So that is a brief overview of the smart and static collections, okay? By the way, collections will show up over here. If you're not seeing this collections sidebar, or let's say if you decide, well, I don't really need this feature and I don't want this thing to be here to be a visual clutter, you can customize your sidebar and delete the things you don't want or drag in the things that you're missing, okay? So the sidebar can be completely customized to fit your needs. Okay. Let's see. To talk about the autocorrect feature. Right, autocorrect feature. Yeah, we'll definitely look into that. I think that's a system level thing, but I haven't really thought too much about it. We'll definitely look into it. Now, we have talked about static and smart collections, right? These things live outside of the containers or projects, and they're like folders for projects and contexts, right? What if you want to have a data object level thing that's embedded inside a project, right? So now let's talk about the ability to oversee project using custom dashboards. We all know that we have already a universal dashboard that shows you everything. And that is everything from your professional work to your personal life to one of your side jobs and to everything, right? So sometimes you want to see a more scoped or more customized view of your business. So in that case, you can consider creating custom dashboards. Custom dashboard, they are really just projects, right? So right now I have one overall dashboard for Pagico, and let me walk you through and show you what I have here. So as you know, we have a global user base. And so in many cases, we need to set up meetings with users and customers, and I need to be aware of time, right? And calculating time difference is not one of my strengths. And so having a world clock over here is really handy. And I did this by using a web widget, which can be fully customized, of course. And then I have a shortcut section, and these are all the commonly used shortcuts that I use on a daily basis, right? So they range from technical stuff all the way to marketing related stuff. And so that can save me a lot of time by not having to hunt for that web URL in my browser. I can just jump in right here from anywhere. And then I have a section called near-term actions, right? So these are an aggregated list of all the things that need my attention. For instance, right here, I have a list of recent development projects, right? So what have I been working on, and what am I going to work on in the near future, right? Near-term marketing related actions, right? So what actions am I going to do, or are my team going to do in terms of marketing? And what are marketing related projects? What are the pending develop related actions? What are the things that are recently done, right? And so these give me a snapshot of how things look like whenever I open up the dashboard. In addition to the near-term actions, I would move on and have a future and roadmap section where I keep track of all the brainstorm ideas and keep track of all the user requested features and things like that. And also included some action buttons for automations, which we'll mention in just a second. So that is what a custom dashboard looks like. And you can customize any project and turn it into your business dashboard that shows you important things like a calendar view from a public Google Calendar and a selected number of things matching certain criteria, and you can do all of that. So one of the things I want to talk about first in dashboard building is the feature called Smart List. Smart List can be created right here by clicking the plus sign anywhere in your project or in a contact. You can find the Smart List item right here, okay? And right now you're looking at 5 Smart Lists, right? So let's go in and take a look at one of them, right? So this one is called Recent Development Projects, and let's see what's inside. This is like a recipe for your smart search, right? So this is like just embedded search results. You define the search criteria, and you can define as many as you want. Let me hide the sidebar. And everything is actually guiding you through the creation of your search criteria. In this case, for that particular smart list, I am selecting projects, and I'm selecting category matching Pagico.development, and then I can save. I can limit it to only 5 items because I know I don't need to see too much. Same thing applies over here. Let's check out the dev action pending list, right? So go ahead and choose the edit. Right, so in this case, we're choosing to see every task that's not completed, and the category belongs to the Pagico development section, and the due date is within the last 30 days, and the due date is not after 30 days in the future. And so that way I don't see things too much into the future, right, to distract me. So yeah, this is how we can define smart lists and select things that we need to see. Is Pagico Notion alternative? I believe so, because they really do have similar, sort of goals and design priorities. So it could be, yeah. Yes, smart collections really save time, absolutely. So we'll come back to it with a time-saving tip down the line about smart collections. And so these smart lists, these are like mini smart collections that live inside a project, right? So you can definitely use that to your advantage by selecting things here. Here's another thought, right? So if you're a musician and let's say you produced 10 tracks for the same album, and every track is by itself a project, right? And you can actually, in the album project, which is another project, and have a smart list that matches everything that includes the tag, a soundtrack and belongs to that one album. And then you would have one smart list that shows all the matching things. And so that would be a very easy process to help you make catalogs. So that's that. Moving on to the next thing here, let's talk about the creation of the widgets. Well, let's see. Right. In terms of project management, we have talked about collections. We have talked about creating custom dashboards. We do have a dashboard building tutorial on our blog, and I will post that link in the description as well. And in addition to these things, we have talked about using tags for objects. Let's talk about using tags one more time, okay? So a while ago, we mentioned that you can add tags to projects by using the metadata panel. We have talked about adding tags to list items by just typing them out. And well, as it turns out, it really is that easy. For instance, if I have a note over here and that I want to tag it, I can just say, okay, so this is my webinar script here. I can just have workshop script, right? So you just go ahead and write things out. Interesting. So, I think it's the bold thing. Okay, so let me unbold that and see. Interesting. That is definitely interesting. But yeah, the ideal is that you can just write things out in line, and Pagico would and should be able to recognize all of these syntax and turn them into labels. And once you have them as labels, you can actually click on them to actually do a really quick search of everything that matches the selected tag to speed up your sort of searching or browsing needs. So we have talked about categories, we have talked about smart lists, and so now let's talk about the creation of web widgets, okay? So actually I do have 3 things I want to talk about in terms of web widgets, which is definitely new to the main edition here. First of all, let's try to add a Pomodoro timer to our project. Time tracking is very important, and Pomodoro has been known to be as a very helpful sort of productivity hack, right? So once you have that timer up, you're much more likely to be productive and focused, and you know when to take breaks, right? So that's really important. So let's try to create one timer really quickly. Okay, so if you do a search for timer embeddable on Google, you will find a bunch of them, right? So this is just one of them, and I'm not affiliated with them in any way. So this is definitely a very famous timer on the web. So here is a very simple Pomodoro timer, and all I need to do is I need to just copy that link in the browser, and then I would close that. I would create a new link. Where's link? There you go. So that link. Okay, so by creating a link, I would be able to paste in the web address and just give it a caption called timer, okay? You can caption it any way you like. And then you realize, oh, this is only a bookmark. I don't really need that, right? So what I really need is actually rendered as widget. So make sure you turn on that toggle right there. And once you've done that, Pagico will just re-render this object here. Let's see. And you would see the content, right? So, well, this is too wide, so let's go ahead and assign layout to half width, okay? Halfway is better, but this is not long enough. And all the web widgets can be resized by go ahead and dragging the bottom edge of the widget. And you can just drop down until you see everything you like. And that's it. So the custom height will be memorized by Pagico. And so the next time you come back to it, you will be able to preserve the height and width, and then you can just go ahead and use it. It's a fully functional embedded web view, and it works with almost everything. Here's one caveat though. Some of the websites prevent you from embedding or prevent from being embedded. For instance, twitter.com is a good example, and google.com is another good example. So if you try to embed those things that are configured to not work inside an embedded fashion, then you're not going to see the result. Okay, just FYI. So if you run into those kind of things, don't be surprised and just try a different URL. Yeah, definitely. We'll talk about workflow versus templates for sure. So this is a timer, right? So let me just pause that. And another web widget I want to show you is actually a world clock, right? So once again, I did a search online and there are a bunch of the results matching the criteria. And this is the one that I found to be quite good looking, right? So this is from commonninja.com, right? And they obviously offer a wide range of widgets, and the world clock is one of them. And so you get to configure how many clocks you want to see. And so let's say I don't need to see Paris. I don't need to see Sydney right now, just 2 clocks. So save the changes, and it'll take a minute. Oh, I'm changing my other clock. Okay, never mind. That's fine. It works. So, and then once that's done, I'm going to click on the code over here. You realize that this is a different scenario. For the timer widget, you have a URL. And for this clock over here, you don't have a URL anymore. You have a bunch of HTML code. So you can also do this, right? So by just copying the HTML code over here, adding a new link, you don't want to use the web address. You want to enable widget and paste in the link right here, right? That's where your HTML goes. And I don't need a caption right here. Just go ahead and hit save. And once saved, you would see your widget showing up. And as always, you can definitely just resize your widget so that it shows the right amount of information, and that looks good. The reason you're seeing 4 clocks instead of 2 is because Common Ninja is kind of interesting. They host everything on a CDN, and the update takes some time. And so some of the changes, as you remember from the dialogue, said that if you make some changes, it might take a while for you to see it. So in a few minutes, I would expect to see the 2 clocks showing up. So that is embedding work clock into your project. And let's look at weather widgets, right? So once again, just search for embeddable HTML or web weather widget, and you will see a whole bunch of them, and this is one of them. And so, yeah, this is New York. It looks good. So I would say get code. Similar to the world clock situation, you also have a bunch of HTML code, and so all you need to do is just copy to clipboard and close. We don't need it anymore. And then create a new link inside your project. Link, no web address, widget, yes, and paste in the link and hit save. So once you save it, you would have your weather widget. Okay, so once again, you can resize it, and I think the weather widget is actually responsive, and so that if you do have a smaller width, it'll actually adjust its layout, and so that it makes more sense. Right, so you can adjust the dimension of your widgets. So that concludes the web widget section, and now let's go into the workflow section. Okay, so automated workflow is a new feature recently introduced, actually just in this month. Right? So let me go to the editor and show you around. Once again, this is where to find your workflow editor. It is in the database specific section right here, but you can also get there by using the manage workflow capability everywhere in Pagico. I believe you can also do it right here by clicking on this, and yes, you have 8 active workflows right here. Click on that and you'll be brought to the workflow editor as well. So right now I have 9 workflows, one of them being inactive, and that means Pagico will ignore that completely. So in any workflow, there are two things to configure. One is a trigger, one is the action, right? So I believe a lot of you guys have seen similar things like this. Zapier was like that. If this weren't, then that was another one, right? So this is actually pretty commonplace nowadays, right? So one of the first things you want to do is, of course, to name your workflow correctly, and so that down the line, you know exactly what they do, okay? And you can choose to turn it on or not. When configuring the trigger, right? So you define when this thing will be invoked. When a new task is created matching certain criteria, or when a list has been created, when a node has been created. So you can choose whatever criteria that you want to trigger the event. And then define the actions. Every workflow can only have one trigger, right? So you want to define that correctly and then go to the action sequence. The action sequence, in many cases, the sequence actually matters. For instance, if the sequence involves the creation of a new project and then creation of things inside that project, obviously you want to make sure the project creation happens before the data object creation. I think I do have one example here. Right, so this is a workflow known as create new release checklist. So every time I want to have a new release going out, these are minor releases, these are not monthly releases, right? So they still have a bunch of routine tasks to do. So in that particular workflow, I would first create a new list next to the object which triggered this thing. So for instance, in a monthly update, I would say, oh, I discovered a bunch of things I need to fix and a bunch of new features to develop and to ship right away. And then I would right click anywhere and then choose, hey, give me a new release checklist, right? And so that list will be created right next to where I'm currently at. And after creating the list, as you can see, the title of the list will be called release checklist. It will carry a custom category, and then additional list items are added to that list, right? So I'm adding tests, internal checking, and when you're doing that, you also can define the indentation level. And if you feel like it, you can also drag the handles over here to adjust their order so that they are created exactly the way you want them to be. Right, so, well, let me show you how this particular workflow looks like, right? So if I go into this one here, right? See, this action button had been created a while ago because, this is a really handy thing and I use that quite a lot. And so I tend to include this action button in corresponding places. So let's say now I want to create a new release, right? So I would need a complete checklist. I would simply click on this action button right there and Pagico will ask, do you want to invoke that workflow? I would say yes. So it will automatically create the entire thing, including lists and sublists and dates and categories and maybe tags and team assignments. You can do all of that with a workflow. What's also interesting was that if your workflow includes time, then all the things created will automatically be shifted based on the time you provided. For instance, by creating this checklist, let's take a look at the schedule. So this is my checklist. It appears that, oh, by creating the checklist, I will be doing internal testing today, public testing, and then take a few days. And then next Monday, I will be drafting emails, sending them out, and drafting blog posts, and upload and final test, and all of that kind of stuff. So everything is based on the moment when the workflow was invoked. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're creating or defining your custom workflow. It could be quite handy. So that's a workflow. Let's go to another one. And that was a pretty straightforward one where things are manually invoked and data objects are created, are defined in a way. But let's go ahead and look at my new client registration. We actually published a video not too long ago about this one workflow. So if you're interested, you can watch how it looks in its entirety. But the ideal is, as soon as any contact is marked as type client in the metadata, I would automatically, well, I would not, but Pagico would automatically send out an email to the recipient with the subject of welcome and with the email body to be thank you for choosing us. You can, of course, customize the message right here. You can create a list in that same contact. You can add a new list that says client added today, which records the date where this person becomes your client. And you can create an anniversary reminder where in 1 year, a task automatically pops up and say, hey, you should say hello to this client for being your customer for at least a year, right? So you can customize all of these things and Pagico can do those things for you. You can send a team chat message as well. You can send an email. One more thing about email is that you can also include a copy of the source object. That is useful when you want to inform, let's say, a contact of something that you just updated. For instance, if a certain task is relevant to a team member, you can actually say, when this task is updated, send an email to the assigned contact, including a copy of the task itself. So your colleague would receive the email saying, hey, here's an email from your colleague, and here's your brief message, and here is the task itself, whether it's newly created, it's not checked, or it's already checked. So you get to send a copy of whatever that was previously leading that action, right? So once again, the ordering of objects definitely matters, and so you can definitely practice that and see how it goes. So one of you guys, I think OO just asked a question about the difference between workflows and templates. That's a great question. So templates, let me show you what templates I have right now. I do have quite a few templates right here, and one of them is actually a monthly release template. A template is a collection of data objects with predefined content inside. There is no action inside. So if you already know that you'll be creating a relatively complex things with all the data already in place, the only thing moving being the dates, you can definitely use the templates because it gives you a better view of the result as you create it. So let's take a look at my monthly review template. Monthly release template. So this is my monthly release template that we use every month. And here's the viewing of the content here. This is what a monthly release looks like. First of all, it has a header image right here, and it has a title, it has the description here, it has the custom tabs already. So this is one reason why you want to use templates, because you get to control these things more finely and more definitively. So you have all the objects, they're half width, right? And they're categorized already, and they have a date and so on and so forth. This is feature 1, new feature 2. Every month we roll out new features, right? So when it's time, I would be creating a new project using this template, renaming the project, renaming the features, and the development items goes here. The error handling part goes here. The UE related item goes over here. So this creates a nice framework for me to start my work. I would duplicate the list if needed. These are the minor improvements list. These are the bug tracker list. And for the marketing, you would have the marketing related actions, and all of them are dated based on the time of the project creation. Okay, so this is why you want to use templates when you want total control on the presentation of your object, right? Workflows are more optimized for performing actions on the spot, right? For instance, in the example we just gave before, oh, I need a new list right now in that existing container. I can do that and it will pop right up. And if I do assign a tag to a task, then automatically the task gets assigned to a team member. So that is when you want to take advantage of the workflow capability. Yeah, so that's workflow triggering. Oh yeah, so ways to trigger workflows, right? So far you have seen the use of action buttons. How do we do that, right? So let's actually go back out and take a look at my workflows, and then we'll come back right here. So let's see, new Pagico Workshop. Okay, so new Pagico Workshop or new feature idea. Okay, so let's say I want to do a new Pagico Workshop action, okay? There you go, the 2 o'clock. Okay, so if I want to create this action button right here, an action button is actually just an inline link to a workflow object, okay? So to write an inline link, I'm going to use the square bracket, and I would say new Pagico feature idea. So I can choose that from the autocomplete selection, right? So by doing that, I simply save, and this thing gets turned into a action button automatically, okay? And by doing that, well, let's look at what this action does. I think this action creates a new project and gives a a category and lets you rename the idea, right? Just like these things. So I would just give it a try. Let's click on that. Do you want to invoke the new Pagico feature idea project? Yes. I would choose that. One moment, and it will take a moment to create everything. And will let me go over there, and I can create this idea, name it the feature here. The project is already categorized automatically and already have a framework to put in the idea and details here, and it even has a follow-up task in precisely 10, 12 days for me to review whether or not to move forward with the project. As you know, these are brainstorming ideas, right? So most of them gets killed or gets revised, gets pushed down, and so it's really helpful to have this follow-up task created automatically. And now that I have this new feature, let's say amazing new feature, right? And if I go back to my dashboard, I would be able to see this new feature showing up right there in the brainstorm ideas smart list, right? Okay, so that was about creating action buttons, right? So it's really straightforward. But since we're talking about inline links, I do want to talk about a very important capability, the inline link. Right, so Pagico works, to allow or to support you in terms of the creation of a knowledge base. So if you do have things that you want to create cross links, you can do it by, first of all, creating a link to a container. Where's the container? Project or contact, there you go. So you can try to link to something that you already have, right? For instance, oh, I want to link this to the 2024 May project. You can do that, right? By doing that, you'll be adding a linked project card. But sometimes you want something that's more in line, right? So as you're writing note, sometimes you want to link to something, right? So link to a Pagico project, right? So for instance, you can just use the square bracket and just say Pagico 2024 April update. Yeah, just hit tab and save. So what happens here is that you will, well, this is lightning bolt over here, happens to be because the project was named or has that icon. But the ideal is that you can link to any object of your choice. And once you have that, they become a clickable object. You can click on that to get a preview of what's inside. And you can, of course, you can go to it. So inline link is a very easily overlooked capability, but it could be quite powerful if you're trying to create your own knowledge base where you can go easily from one page to the next. Thank you, Pat, for the question. Yes, workflow, I forgot to mention, workflows are synced across your databases through Personal Cloud. And so you don't have to create the same workflows multiple times. You just need to create workflows on one system and it automatically syncs across and it will show up and it will function as expected as well. Yeah, deploy new project from templates. That is actually a great question. So if I want to show you my post-release wish list right now. So one of the only remaining thing here is that, for the workflow project creation capability right now, it doesn't let you choose a template, but this is definitely coming. So in a few days, you would see an updated version of Pagico where the new project action will let you choose a template. So you can easily do, have a button, click on that and create a brand new project based on an existing template and then do A, B, and C, which will be really amazing. So that is definitely coming. For now, you can create a new project, but they will just be blank and you have to specify everything by hand in the workflow itself, if that makes sense. Clock widget, absolutely. So yeah, all the widget links will be included in the description and also in the blog post following this webinar here. So workflows. Okay, so the other way to trigger workflows, let's say if you have container level workflows, like the create a release checklist thing, right? You can invoke those in the create new menu right here. See, all of the workflows that carry manual triggers will show up right there. And so you can choose to invoke these things right here in any given project or contact. You can do that. So these are the ways to trigger workflows on demand. And if something did not work well, then you can go ahead and check out the notification section here. As you can see previously, all of these workflows executed correctly, and you get to see a completed result right here. But if anything failed, for instance, your previous action created a reference to a list, and then your next action was sending an email to the previous object, which doesn't contain an email address. And so workflow will not be able to complete it, and it will complain to say, hey, we don't have an email address for step number 3. One more thing to take a look at is if we go to the workflow editor And if you go into any one of them, you get to see an execution history, right? So you get to see, well, how many times have this workflow have worked? And how many times was it successful on what object, right? So you get to keep track of an execution history, so to speak. All right, so now our time's running out, and let me go into a lightning round, and let's talk about power-ups, right? So productivity power-ups. And I have a few really short tips to share with you, and that could potentially speed up your workflow dramatically, okay? So first of all, it's something you probably already know, which is the Today view, right? So the Today view can be invoked by clicking on the Today button right here in the toolbar. And once you're there, you will be able to see a Today, Tomorrow, and Overdue Sunday group. What this view does is that it lets you only look at things that matter to you on the current day, right? So for instance, the live stream is going right now, internal testing, well, these are the things we just created, right? So need finding and so on and so forth. Yeah, so these are the things we need to look at. But what if I can't do this today? You can easily reschedule this by dragging this thing to tomorrow. So by doing that, we will be rescheduling this task automatically without you ever going into the task details and renaming and snoozing in any way, right? So this is a great way for you to focus on the current day and reschedule as needed. One of the things that you probably didn't know is that you can actually resize the sidebar over here, and so that you can have a 2-column view of the task. So if you have a really big display, this is something you probably want to take advantage of. Next up is the Command Enter New creation menu, right? So this is just one of the projects, and when you're ready to create new things, and if you're a keyboard-oriented user, you can just go ahead and use Command Enter to bring up the Create New menu, right? So this is really keyboard-friendly way for you to add new content to your project. And let's say if I want to add a new link, right? I can just type in link and then just put in the link URL and then hit enter. And that link will be created automatically. You don't need to go through menus or panels. It just creates automatically. If I want to create a new list named as Post Workshop To-Dos, right? I can just do that. And now I have my list with a title already predefined. If I want to create a new heading, so I can just do H1, important stuff, right? So you can just type it out and it just goes into your data right away. The reason why it's showing after the post workshop to-dos is because that object was previously selected. And so when you have an object already selected and create new things, the new things will be added to the end of that guy, okay? Moving forward, another thing that you probably already know about is pinning to your dashboard. You can pin any project or contact to your dashboard by using the sandwich icon and then choose the pin or unpin from dashboard. What that does is that you will get to access some of the handful of projects right here on your dashboard, making it really easy to access. So some of your currently active projects, add them over here so you don't have to hunt them down at all. You can also set custom start views. For instance, this one, let's say, is my overall dashboard. I do use that all the time. And I don't want to navigate a couple of links every time. I can actually just right click over here and choose set as starting view. You can also do the same thing in the sandwich icon as well, set as starting view. Once you set that as a starting view, next time when you launch Pagico, you go here right away. And the best part about this is that you can choose a lot of views as your starting view. For instance, you can start in the teams view, you can start with the projects view, you can do anything, right? So define your custom view so you jump right in. One other thing that's really minor but could be potentially very helpful is that you can define inspirational messages at launch time. So you can define a lot of things over here and one line at a time, and then Pagico will randomly select new messages and show them up at launch time, which could be pretty cool. And lastly, yes, of course, making your own template, right? So as you can see right now, I have a lot of projects with multiple subtabs, and creating a new project with templates can save you tremendous amount of time. And for instance, if I want to do the June update, I just need to do this one here, Pagico 2024 June update. I just give it a title and I can choose when I want to start my work. So I would start working on June 1st, which is probably not a good idea, but let's just go with that. Create object, are you sure? Yes. And so it'll take a little while, and then it will apply my custom template and create a new name and start everything on June 1st, as you can see right here. Very handy. And making templates is also very easy, right? So you just want to pre-make one project to your liking, and then when you're done, click on that and choose Save as Template. Then you get to name the template, and that becomes your own template that you can reuse repeatedly down the line. So that's templates. And making workflows, you've already seen that. And we have talked about using inline links, using the square bracket. You definitely want to use that. And you can use the same thing to create action buttons. Yeah, finally, there's one more thing I want to show you about. That is the pipeline capability. A lot of cases when you're doing things, let's say, yeah, that feature. Okay, so let's say I'm building this feature. I want to know, how, on time I am, right, in terms of this thing. So first of all, I would make it full width so we can see it more clearly, right? So this automated workflow, it has multiple stages and different stages, different subtasks, and I really want to see how, sort of on track I am, right? And when that happens, you're going to click on the down arrow over here to fold the list. Any list that is folded gets turned into a pipeline view automatically. And you get to see what the sections are titled as, and you get to see their completion rate. Okay, so let me close that. You can see a little bit more. And so you can see, oh, the tracking event, that's done. This thing is done. This thing's done. This thing actually has one more thing. 7 out of 8 items completed. And the 8th item is new Slack message. So that's something else we're working on as well. So yeah, pipeline view can be potentially very interesting because it gives you a nice and clean visual representation of your progress. So when to use pipelines? You probably want to use them when you have a long list, you have multiple tiers of lists. And when you fold it, Pagico will only show you the top level list items and will fold everything down into the top level items as sub items, and will render a progress bar for you automatically. So yeah, that is the final power up technique I want to share with you. And now I want to review any questions that I missed and then talk about or try to answer those questions as much as possible. If you have additional questions, feel free to ask and I'll be happy to answer. So let me take a moment to read the chat. Incorporate templates in a workflow, you save a lot of time. Tiffany, yes, absolutely. That's one of the things we're working on, right? So right now the workflow only creates blank new projects or contacts, but in a few days, it'll be able to let you select template and go from there. That'll definitely accelerate your workflow for sure. Calendar integration with the Pagico, will there be ability to change repeating events within Pagico? Okay, so we're talking about embedding calendar. That's a really good thing. So I should add that to my power up techniques here, right? So if you're on Mac, then you can embed calendars from your system into Pagico. And once you've done that, it's taking a moment to scan all the calendars. Once you've done that, all your calendar events will show up on your timeline and your calendar view right here. As you can see, that's my calendar from the system. And right now, you can make changes to individual single day events. You cannot make changes to repeating tasks, although you can see them. That's something we can look into because editing, one thing from a recurring series is a little flaky. And so we don't want to ruin or causing any damages to your system calendar feed. And so we're staying safe by allowing you to make changes to individual events right now. But that's definitely a thing that we're going to take note about and we're going to look into. Do the workflows sync on cloud? Yes. Can you give an example of what? Okay, Smart Collection really save time, Notion alternatives. Good. Community template repository. We don't have a community template repository, but I think that's a fantastic idea. And right now, we do have a, I think it's template. Well, actually, no, it's just going to blog. And there is a section called templates. So we do periodically publish new templates out, but we'll definitely do more. And I think community, sort of a template pool is a great idea. We'll probably open that section up in the near future. Yeah. To the next. All right, cool. Let's see. Any other questions? Using Pagico for studio recording management. Yeah, there's a lot of these content tabs. Going to rearrange some of the project shortly. Yeah, so content tabs, really cool feature. And okay, so I think I've covered all the questions. All of these are great questions. Thanks so much for participating. And finally, I want to stay on this screen over here, just in case you missed this, right? So you should be able to see the welcome screen right here. So if you missed this opening scene, please do scan the QR code or go to that link. And by entering, you will have a chance to win 1 out of 5 Pagico licenses, or at least you could earn a discount for the license upgrade. And without further delay, I would conclude the session. Once again, thank you so much for participating and for joining me in real time here. It's been a real pleasure, and thanks so much for choosing Pagico. I wish everyone have a good day, and see you guys down the line. Thank you.